Hey all, it's been a while since I've done one of these talking heads deals. This is going to be a little more off the cuff than some of my other vids because I'm going back to a video that I already made years ago. The reason I'm doing this now is because it is the 15th anniversary of the series premiere of Birds of Prey, and I've got 75,000 views. That's crazy. That's like more than twice all my other videos put together. I'm quite certain. So yeah, it's time to celebrate. We got season 6 of Arrow coming up, along with season 4 of Flash and seasons 3 of Supergirl and Legends, and what the hell, season 4 of Gotham while we're at it, and a new Black Lightning series early next year, and that's just DC. You know, don't get me started on what Marvel is cooking. And I'm still getting comments on this video even 6 years after it was posted, before any of those shows even started. So since it's a very different, TV landscape for superheroes from when that vid first went up, I'm wanting to revisit this topic of WB's failed sort of Batman spin-off. So you might call this Birds of Prey, a look back, a look back. I'm going to play the original video, offer up some commentary, and then we're going to go into the comments section because there's a lot of opinions and quite a few behind the scenes tidbits to get into that shed some light on what went down. So, here we go.
There was a show on a few years back on the WB called
Birds
of Prey, a loose adaptation of DC's estrogen-pumped superhero comics. By doing some kind of show that was like Batman but not really, and with chicks. Keep in mind this was before the big Christopher Nolan reboot, so they were still working with elements. Batman knocked up Catwoman, and she gave birth to baby Helena. And because this Catwoman had Kung Fu cat powers, Helena's got him too. Now Helena's grown and Batman has exiled himself from Gotham,
Kung Fu cat powers.
presumably because of the inexplicably named New Gotham.
Yeah, don't wait 10 episodes to answer why New Gotham is in there.
Turns out to revealed to be the Joker's protege Harley Quinn. Sounds like
that
it could
sounds
be a cool
really
show,
good
right?
on paper.
It was not. Don't get me wrong, it had its moments. What happened to old Gotham? Where's Commissioner Gordon? Barbara's dad.
Seriously, where's Commissioner Gordon?
This is some kind of post-Batman
I would
world.
love to hear
what happened to
this
all the
Barbara
other rogues
talking
like
about
Riddler
her
and
dad.
Two-Face? Does Green Arrow exist in this world? For that matter, does Superman? The whole idea of
Superman
legacy
was
was a major
mentioned.
recurring theme on the show. In one episode, Barbara name drops all the previous Robins for no good reason. It actually
Pointless
handicapped
fan
the
service.
story in a weird with the cooler heroes and villains of yesteryear. I guess
The
wonder
cowl
if we'd
looks so
rather be
good on
watching
her.
that show. Elements of the show that seem kind of perplexing. The first concerns the character of Huntress.
I mean, besides its
For
general
reasons I
existence.
confuse to wear
That's
a
the
mask.
costume.
I guess the creators of the show were just uncomfortable with the idea of masks for some reason, or they weren't sure
Yeah,
how to
this
make
is still
it work,
early
which
Smallville.
is stupid considering
still,
what the show is about. And it's a shame
alluding
because
to
the
mask
retired
culture, but
Batgirl
not
costume
really
that they
doing
used
it.
for flashbacks
And this
actually
is from the
looked
same
fantastic.
producers.
As I said, the show utilized a version of Silver Age Huntress, who was the daughter of
I
Batman
just read her
and
origin
Catwoman,
story. It's really good.
not the modern one who bears. Huntress really needed to wear a mask, not just for the obvious reasons, like she wears one in the comics and it protects your secret identity.
You listen to obvious stuff.
But also because it would have been a fascinating piece of character psychology.
It's so stupid.
parent
Like,
loved
imagine
the
if you were at
masks
work flipping burgers and one of your
Helena,
classmates
the
saw you
mask
behind the
is something
counter
that should be deeply rooted in
and
her
they
psyche
see
for
you
a
there
variety
every
of
day
reasons.
and they
It would be a
don't
great way to
recognize
connect with
you
the parents
with
she
your
never
work
knew
shirt
all that
on.
well. And
That's
get
how
across
stupid it
life with the
is.
mask is
The
more
way that
real
nobody
and more
recognizes
fulfilling than
Helena
the normal, boring
when
one.
she's
I guess
being
they sort of
Huntress.
tried it. The
They really
other,
thought
more
that
significant
black trench coat and a
realization
choker
concerns
was
the
a
bizarre arrangement of the
disguise.
cast. See, in the comic, I mentioned
I almost went easy with them in the mask thing.
I don't know what kind of show they were trying
I
to
don't
make,
know what kind
but
of
I
show
can
they were
say for
trying
this
to
show,
make.
Huntress and Black Canary should have switched roles. The more I think about it, the more I wonder why they didn't just do that, even with all the creative liberties. On the show, Helena's outfits are similar
Choker,
to Dinah's
jacket.
in the comics.
There you go.
And the
You've made
actress is
Black
normally
Canary's
blonde
costume
anyway,
already.
but who come across a tough teen who
Alex
turns out
from
to be
Nikita.
Batman's lost daughter. They
Watch
feel
that
she
show
didn't
to
want
see
her
how it's
parentage.
done.
She eventually decides to carry on the costume crime-fighting legacy. Huntress's mask,
Giving her
her
weird Kung Fu cat powers, yeah.
Just swap that character for Black Canary, and added Huntress to the mix. No, the other one. The modern age Huntress, who isn't Batman's daughter. Very complicated.
And New
It's a
52,
great
they try to
dynamic.
like
You have the
combine them
retired hero
somehow.
Oracle. For example, I can easily imagine
Now
a
I get
scene
into
from
my
the pilot
fan
where young
fiction.
Helena sneaks around the HQ in the middle of the night.
My fan
finds
rewrite.
Barbara's old Batgirl suit in a display case. She joins the fight alongside Dinah with her own cool costume. It would have been a
Don't wanna
much
have a
better
mask
way
on the
to mix
pilot, you can work
characters
up to
and
it.
story elements from different eras. Now I wish they'd made that show. What have I done?
And now that song is stuck in my head. I found out later that the show had a lot of great writers on the staff, or at least writers who were going on to better things after they got the hell out of here. You got Ed Kitsis and Adam Horowitz, who worked on Lost and created Once Upon a Time. Melissa Rosenberg, who will later run Dexter and brought Jessica Jones to the screen, and wrote all of the financially successful Twilight movies, for whatever that's worth. One point I wish I'd made before, the idea of combining Huntress, the daughter of Batman and Catwoman, with Barbara Gordon / Oracle is actually a really neat idea. Because both characters occur at a later point in the Batman storyline, but they come from different timelines. So putting them together was, on paper at least, a great way for the show to stand on its own while using ideas from the source material. Sybil Pandemic from the Agony Booth did an excellent episode-by-episode rundown for the graphic novel picture show, which I highly recommend because I sure didn't want to do that. One of the most obnoxious tics of the show that those reviews point out is how the birds are constantly lampshading the superhero no-kill rule, even as they murder the bad guys most of the time. Sometimes it's not even ambiguous, like on Smallville, where bad guys often just trip over their own feet into death. And it's not like on Arrow, where Oliver starts off mowing down villains with impunity and later realizes that he needs to stop that shit. Mainly Oracle insists that they follow this code to the letter and that they always have. And Helena still murders the villain of the week almost every episode, and everyone acts like it didn't happen or it didn't count, which is some pretty intense cognitive dissonance bullshit. Another thing you pointed out early on that I missed was that the show says Helena is half metahuman, which makes no sense. Either you're a metahuman or you're not. Either you have powers or you don't. Same as being half mutant. It's stupid. Looking back on it, instead of Batman having exiled himself after Selina's murder, it would have been easier to just say that he was dead, or that he was presumed dead, like he and the Joker both blew up, and they never found the body. It would have prevented that burning question from hanging over the proceedings, because they tell you every episode that there was Batman, and there was Catwoman, and then there was Huntress, and so on. That's the pre-credits intro, Every episode. If they later decide to say that he'd survived, they would have all that time to figure out how best to account for it. They could have even reversed it and made Catwoman the one who just disappeared, and setting the stage for her to drop in later, played by some well-known actress. Alright, let's get into the comments. Some of these are almost 6 years old. Awesome, keep up the good work. That's Mr. Fusion. Love your work. From Geekvolution, I like this show a little better than you did, but you're spot on about the initial role issues between Helena and Dinah, and the lazy premise when it comes to Batman and his rogues. I can never quite get my head around Batman leaving Gotham, Alfred staying, etc., etc. Some great points, good writing, excellent presentation, and I appreciate the respect you gave the material while articulating its flaws and your frustrations. Nice work, Captain Logan. Thanks, Captain. Your idea is a much more fascinating idea than the legitimate one you described. I won't say the usual, wish you had been in charge, but I will say well done on having an intellectual and research analysis of a possible show as well as ideas for development. Unfortunately, it also means you're liable to get screwed in Hollywood. Damn. That's Samuel Preston. Yeah, I appreciate it. Kitty Key says, it's a real shame. I fell in love with Huntress when I first saw her on Justice League Unlimited. Even bought her comics, and I was ecstatic finding out that there was a whole TV show called Birds of Prey, and when I watched it, it was painful. Really painful. And not funny painful like the Adam West Batman TV show, just utterly painful. Rowdy Eats says, the target audience was girls. That is why there was little mention of Batman, Commissioner Gordon, and other male figures associated with the Batman mythos. Hence New Gotham. That's my response to your questions and concerns. Yeah, because girls don't know about Batman and Commissioner Gordon. Girls who watch the show, who get told all the time that Batman is part of it, they're not going to know anything about Batman, so they've decided to get him off the show. That's why. Ezekiel Ramirez has a few from a couple months ago. Helena having powers is cool with me because this show implies it's set in the Tim Burton timeline, or at least a very similar world. So Helena would essentially be the daughter of Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, and she had Chloe King powers in Batman Returns. I might do a video like this about Chloe King. I would have to watch the episode again, but it's only 10 episodes, and there's probably not as much to unpack there. I really like the Batman Returns origin for Catwoman, but I think it only works in that movie because they keep it really ambiguous and it's very artistic and stuff. Trying to attach some logic behind it is what they also tried to do in the Halle Berry Catwoman movie and on this show, and it ended up not really being a good example of how best to present this character. It's interesting that you would make that point about switching up Helena and Dinah. I thought the same thing when I saw the show, and I believe someone else says it in a video too, so it seems like a lot of people think it would have been a better idea. It really would fix a lot. Helena would still have Max from Dark Angel powers. Not going to do one on that show. But now they could be a metaphor for puberty because that's basically the quintessential teenage superhero story. Yeah, that's good stuff. The star of the comment section wound up being this guy, Shadowhawk28, who, aside from offering up some really interesting behind-the-scenes tidbits, also went around sort of shouting down anybody offering even a hint of praise toward this show. That included me when I said that I thought the episode Shiva was the best because of the really good Helena and Barbara scenes. Lady Shiva was a joke in the show, and she was a petty crook who was barely able to hold her own against Barbara Gordon and wears a mask, so who's the idiot that thought it was a good idea? In the comics, she's a wise and top-ranking assassin, one of the best martial artists in the world, being as good, if not better, than Mr. Wayne himself, and never wears a mask. I actually had an idea of how Shiva would show up in my imagined show, where, like, Huntress would be protecting some witness or whatever, and then Shiva comes out of nowhere and kills a witness. Barbara's watching from command and sees through Helena's, like, mask camera that it's Shiva. He's like, Huntress, do not engage! And then Huntress turns off her comms, goes after Shiva, and gets her ass kicked. So she's got to spend the next couple episodes like recuperating from that hard lesson. Like either way, the show ought to be able to stand on its own, even as it makes sort of a subtle reference to the movies. That's basically what Supergirl does. There's so much lore out there that it's stupid to restrict themselves from it. Rocket Dave says, you've hit on everything I've found wrong with BOP. I'm not really familiar with the comic, but the version you propose sounds so much better than what we got. I think they were afraid of masked Huntress would look too comic booky. That's what I'm thinking. Which is crazy when you take into account how campy and ridiculous everything else about the series was. Shadowhawk says, too comic booky my ass. This seems like a cash grab on well-recognized characters from DC Comics while putting in a half-ass effort on the reality angle. Just wasn't the way to do it. Stupid idiots. Chima says, actually it was said in one episode that the reason Helena didn't wear a mask was because it affected her vision during combat. Shadowhawk says, well, that's why it was stupid for her to go out fighting crime without using a proper disguise or mask. Even the show itself showed facial recognition software, but she makes no effort whatsoever to throw people off. In the comics and also on Arrow, you got Black Canary, she wears a wig and a mask, but also a wig. In the comics, she sometimes just wears the wig. But it's something. Cal says, the show is really good, so only 13 episodes are made. Most series tend to last a good 22 to 26 episodes. It became another victim of cancellation like Firefly and Street Hawk. You have no idea what you're talking about. Birds of Prey is not that good unless you think monotonous dialogue and BOP is somehow interesting. It's back, well, it is a matter of opinion, but yes, the dialogue was cringy at times, but I thought the show self-improved as it went along. In what way was it improved, says Shadow? It doesn't take genius to see how the show is pretty horrible altogether. The writing was ridiculously putrid, laughable even in some episodes. I watched it when it was on the air, and I wish I had not. The acting ranged from okay to terrible. He goes on and on for several paragraphs. He's got enough in the comment section to go off and make his own video. Jeff Gilman says, while I see your points, I very much enjoyed the show. The three leads were all very strong and nice to look at, and the supporting cast was interesting. Some of the writing was a little weak, but not what I would call lame. While I see your points, but I disagree. Harley is a goofball. She's a complete nutcase who never takes anything seriously. She's always over the top crazy. She's not stupid, of course, but becoming some ultra evil killer crime boss? No. If they wanted an ultra serious female crime boss or something, there are plenty of female characters in the Rogues Gallery that could fit that role. Talia al Ghul springs to mind. I guess they wanted a connection to the Joker, but if they're not even going to bother getting Harley Quinn right, they might as well make up a new character altogether. As for a distrustful police officer, why would Reese not know who Batman is? Seriously, it's not like it was 20 or 30 years ago. It was only 7 years, and Helena was 16 at the time, which means Reese must have been 16 or more. He was the mob boss's son. Wouldn't he have heard his father talking or from the news mentioned Batman before? I think she didn't wear a mask because the 2000 X-Men film, and I guess they felt Birds of Prey was out in 2003, and more filmmakers didn't want their superhero to wear a mask. Even Spider-Man, the third film, didn't wear his mask anymore. Yeah, he kept taking it off. Oh, you got a good point there with your movie references. Now, superhero movies are really staying away from what they're supposed to be. In the last Wolverine movie, you see Wolverine lose his powers, and they wanted him to be Logan, not the Wolverine. How many films has Wolverine appeared in, and they still haven't given him the mask? Last Lap Studio says, I feel that most of the problems you listed could have been ironed out if they got in a second season. I think they showed a lot more positives and negatives, seeing as how it was before Nolan's darker movie, and therefore was something that was still very different for the time, seeing as how they're still reeling over Schumacher. It's not like the Nolan films were the first time anybody took Batman seriously. The show was fun in its own campy sort of way, just like Adam West series in the mid-60s. What ruined it was an emphasis on unnecessary narrative elements pertaining to how Gotham was left in ruin after a major seismic event. Shadow says, I do agree, but this show could have been something they would have needed to really work on the storyline, if not make the first season all about what happened in the past to explain how Gotham ended up with no Batman, but a couple of hot chicks fighting crime. I'm a fan of Birds of Prey, but after hearing your perspective about the series, and you're 100% right, it was all about WB and the producers of Smallville trying to capitalize on the success of Smallville. The series did have huge holes, but what was the end game? Shadow says easy, trying to follow the Buffy formula only backfired. And they were still in plainclothes superhero territory. Ted Fisher says, great overview and ideas. While I didn't hate the show, it would have been a lot better with a better story. I definitely would have liked to see Huntress in the black/purple/silver armor. Or costume, yeah. Super Squeak says, it really sounds like it could have been brilliant, but they botched it. I don't know what their limitations were as far as the rights of the characters and whatnot, but it still seems pretty weak looking. I love the look of Barbara's Batgirl suit, but the rest looks bad. It only occurred to me to look it up since there was a resurgence of superhero TV show based on DC properties popping up right now. I definitely see what you mean on them trying to capitalize on a girl power thing. It definitely looks like it is trying to be something it's not. I am a big time Buffy fan and Charm really caught my fancy as a kid, but legit superheroes need their costume. I mean, does she use the moniker Huntress in the show? Yeah, she does. As far as Charmed, I highly recommend checking out Obscurus Lupa during on her Manic episode series. She covered Charmed season by season. I mean, if you love Charmed, you might not go for it, but would you prefer a 13-episode show, that is this long, that is excellent? Or would you have a show that is this good that goes on for like 4 or 5 more years? I know which I'd prefer. Jason Johnson goes, this show is badass. F you, masterpiece, douchebag guy. Shadowhawk says, you have no idea what you're talking about. Birds of Prey is not badass unless you think monotonous dialogue in BOP is somehow interesting. We're doing a lot of the same points. Shadowhawk chimes in, Batman wouldn't leave because friends got hurt or killed. Remember that it was a double murder that started the whole Batman phenomena. If anything, hurting or killing Batman's friends would make him edgier and maybe even more dangerous. I think that notion would have kept some Batman fans from tuning in on this show. The producers of the show have talked about why it sucked and they blame it all on Warner Brothers meddling. After the pilot, WB told them they couldn't use Batman, the Joker, or any of the DC characters, and they were told to get rid of Harley Quinn once the show was in production. It turned into a Mutant of the Week series because the writers weren't left much room to work with. Also, Warner Brothers hated Oracle/Batgirl being in a wheelchair and wanted to push the younger Huntress character to attract the young adult audience. I presume the young adult male audience. The writers didn't know what to do with the Dinah character since she didn't have any super physical abilities, and they debated writing her out of the series. Warner's also insisted that the show be shot in LA, which drove production costs up and left the producers little money for fresh CGI effects. Then, when Warner Bros. Notified the producers of the show's cancellation, the studio demanded Harley Quinn's return and the show be given an ending which would help DVD sales. That's why they made that concession. I just think that all the bureaucracy and copyrights around these things are stupid. The show was ruined by that, and I would have loved to see a second season with better writers who know about Batman's world than these idiots who didn't seem to have a clue on what they were doing. Sadly, as proven above, they were the reasons that the show didn't last long. I'm certainly no stranger to falling for a show that was axed too soon. I'm not usually one to hound people on why they love a particular thing because that's often rooted in some messed up fanboy entitlement and snobbery. When it comes to a show like Birds of Prey, I can't help but looking at comments like praising this show as some underappreciated gem and say like, really? This thing? Really? Really? Some will say like, oh, you gotta admit they were hot. Yeah, because there are so few hot women on TV. There's a real shortage there. And the blame really seems to come down to the network. No matter how talented the writers or the cast was or how much potential the source material offered, the network just did not give a shit. They never believed in it. Their whole objective was fill an hour of television. That's it. Anything more was a bridge too far. Thankfully, 15 years later, TV is a much nicer place for DC's capes and masks in their full glory, rather than this watered-down waste. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed that video. If you do, make sure to like, comment, and favorite. Click on my shield to subscribe for more new videos. Make sure you head on over to my official website, evilcloneproduction.com, for even more exclusive content. How many more of these?